We have music.
I like it.
Hello and welcome to the Fishing Guide Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Wiegmann. And I tell you what, it was pretty exciting. We're with Jeff Sprague. We've tried to track you down for 2 days.
That's tough.
And the reason why is because he's so busy. But the reason why you're so busy is because you're so successful. You know what? Why don't we just start right out? Tell us why you're so successful as an angler.
You know, I feel like that I've been very successful just because my lack of just being able to fish on history, things like that. And I really push the envelope, meaning I fish very loose. I like to try new things. I'm not scared to pull my trolling motor and just run and try new things during an event, not just during practice, but during the event. If something's not working, I'm very much aware of it, and I will make an adjustment. So the success comes from that. I feel like a lot of times making decisions on the water is really key, not just sticking with a dead pattern or a dying pattern, just getting out there and reading what the fish want to do and let them tell you how the day's gonna unfold.
And so when you started fishing, tell us, what was your progression to fish, and who did you fish with the most as a kid? Was it your grandma, your dad, or your mom?
So, you know, starting off when I was a kid, you know, my dad took us when we were young, little bitty kids, up until we were probably 8 or 9, you know. And then Dad really just kind of didn't, some things happened in life, and Dad wasn't around quite so much. Right. So my grandmother and my great-grandmother really stepped in. That's where my passion from fishing comes from. Right. We would sit down, they would catch a lot of catfish. You know, we loved to fish on the dock. They loved to fish, stock ponds. But they had a little place at the lake that they rented, and we were able to fish off the dock there. I was able to walk around after they would get catfish, and I would grab a little rod and reel, and I'd start fishing around the bank trying to catch other things, brim, bass, whatever would bite. And that's where it all came from. I just remember just seeing how happy it made my grandparents and my great-grandmother and my grandmother, and they loved it. I don't know, something inside me just picked up on it, and that was happiness to me, and so that's what I really relate fishing to. And
you progressed to what? Did you fish high school?
No.
So how old are you?
I'm 40 now, actually.
So actually, that wasn't a thing.
No.
So you didn't even have that opportunity. Did you have the opportunity to fish in college?
No. So we didn't have it. We didn't have high school or college yet. So I just when I was a kid, high school, I would literally fish. I would fish after school, and then I'd come back for football practice, that's just what we did. That's where I grew up, and that's how some kids will go to the weight room, some kids will go play ball, some kids do. I just wanted to fish. I wanted to hunt and fish, and that's what we did. And so that's where it really kind of came into play, if you will. Right. And so no college or anything, and then joined the service and went off and did all that, and ultimately got out of the service just so I could start fishing again. Yeah.
I had heard that you were an MP in the service.
I was.
Is that right?
Yeah, military police. I did that for 4 years.
I forget who told me that, and I repeated it. And he said, he looks like he'd be an MP.
Oh my goodness!
And I was like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and being able to have those experiences and being able to work before I actually started fishing made me respect the job that I have now even more. Right. So I understand it, I respect it, and I enjoy people. I enjoy being able to give back to the youth and the veterans, as well. That's a big deal for me. Casting Freedom is another organization I'm involved with. Great organization there, and they give back to veterans with PTSD and so on and so forth. And it's just great stuff that I truly believe in.
So things that you could tell, what would you tell a high school kid? What would be your tip for a high school kid? What would be your tip for a college kid? And what would be a tip for someone who's fishing to tackle warehouse? Well, those three levels.
Absolutely. And those guys all have, nowadays we have so much information out there that they can get their own game plans together, and that's what's really cool. And they can get a really head start on just by watching us fish. Right. But for a high school angler, spend as much time on the water as you can. YouTube is great. You can learn a lot from watching videos, but there's no substitute for time on the water and putting yourself in those experiences, seeing what fish do, seeing what weather does, seeing what water does, seeing how a lake's fish, and so on and so forth. And for a college angler, get yourself a routine, get yourself a pattern, or get yourself some sort of a technique that you really like, and then become a professional at it. Make it your home base. Make it your signature, whether that's flipping, casting, whatever it is, jerking, whatever that you like to do. Make that your home base. Make that your fallback crutch. And then build your base around that, and then become a better angler. You can learn all the other techniques, but master one. And as far as a guy fishing the tackle warehouse, I just came from the tackle warehouse tour a few years ago. And, it's hard to tell those guys what to do, because at that, they're still learning and developing in their own careers, And my biggest thing for a guy who's out there is, never give up, and when things get bad and things, money gets tight, keep your head down, fish hard, and and make right decisions and do the best you can, but never forget your family, because those are the ones that you're doing this all for. And if you don't have your family behind you or with you, then you're going to fish empty, and you're not going to have the success that you truly could have.
Right. So we're actually sitting in the Buck and Bass booth, and so the reason why we're here is because we like staying dry.
Yes.
So tell us what's the they have a rain suit that's greatest on the planet.
They do.
And so tell us what was the worst conditions you've been in that rain suit, and did it keep you dry?
So there's two conditions have been the worst I've ever seen in my entire life. One, we fished in a complete downpour at the St. Lawrence River. It was absolutely just downpouring. It's like Forrest Gump said, it was raining from up, from down, from sideways. It was all around,
Right.
And I literally took my jacket off, and I was dry, and I was so amazed. It's funny because my roommate came in, and he literally took his jacket off and his bibs, and he was soaked from head to toe. And I'm not going to name, it doesn't do any good to name the rain suit company, but I was just like, he was like, that's not even fair. He's like, it just makes me angry that I bought this suit and you're dry. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the second conditions were, Lake Fork this year.
Right.
Lake Fork started off as a rain, and it went to a sleet, and then to an ice storm while we were fishing the event. You guys saw they canceled it early. And I was wearing, obviously, my Buck and Bass outerwear gear and my base layer. And I'm telling you, with the exception of someone feeling like they're peeling my fingernails off with a pair of pliers because my hands were so cold, that without a doubt, I wouldn't have been able to be out there, I don't feel like, without the right gear. I did not suffer nearly as badly as my boat official, my cameraman. They're shivering, shaking, and they're like, they couldn't figure out how I was, still doing what I was doing. But so, it's tried and true. It's proven itself to me time and time again. And I'm so, there's anglers who promote things because they're paid to promote them, and then there's anglers who promote things because we believe in them. And it's something I believe in.
Yeah, so tell us what's your favorite lure to fish?
I'm a power fisherman. I'm known as a power fisherman. Heavy lines, big bass. That's what I grew up doing. And so I really enjoy a swim jig. Swim jigs are really big to me. I can fish them, so diversely, so many different ways. And it's something that I really like to do. It's a great bait. You can do it, from as soon as they get anywhere, the water gets around 55, all the 50 plus, all the way to, fall. It's just a great all around lure. So swim jig is probably my favorite way.
What's trailer are you putting on your swim jig?
So there's a couple things. A Rage Menace is my go-to. Rage is the trailer. All right. And then a Rage Swimmer, depending on what I want to, whatever I want to mimic. If I want to mimic a shad, or if I want to mimic like a bluegill or a fleeing crawfish or something like that, that's when I will change up my trailers a little bit.
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
So any tips you can give maybe a young angler on how to select what lure for what conditions?
When you're fishing with a swim jig or any kind of bait that you're going to fish aggressively like that, you really got to know what the bass are wanting to forage on. Are they feeding on a brim? Are they feeding on a crawfish? Are they feeding on a shad? What are they feeding on? A herring? Like what are you fishing around? Blue, some people have perch, in the northern states. So that's what you really need to figure out, what the bass are keying on. Once you figure out what they're eating, if there's not a shad spawn, or if they're eating, so you can keep it simple: black and blue, green pumpkins, and then whites and things like that, And it's just keep it simple. That's the best thing. I see a lot of guys open tackle boxes and see a bunch of crazy colors. And I don't, those are not natural in nature. Sometimes they work, but majority of the time, the most natural presentation will be the one that carries you to the finish line.
We got one more question.
Absolutely.
How about sonar? Live sonar, forward-facing sonar. Has that changed your way of fishing, and has that changed your baits that you're using?
It is changing the way I fishing a little bit more, but I also know that there's a time and a place for the forward-facing sonar. I have been beaten by the forward-facing sonar quite a bit recently, but I've also beat some guys with it recently, so I still have some learning to do on that, and that's something that I'll, if you're not learning, in anything in life, whether you're fishing or you're a doctor, then you're regressing. You're not progressing.
Right.
And so I'm always going to be learning, and I'm always going to try to stay ahead of that curve, and I'm going to make sure that the next advancement in technology is a tool that I can use. So yeah, I think that the forward-facing sonar is a great thing. It's changing fishing, but the fishing is changing. We're catch, weigh, release on the boat now instead of bringing them to a conventional 5-fish weigh-in and having a death rate on those fish.
Right.
And so there you go. A lot of things are going to change.
And bait size.
Yep.
Have you changed your bait size?
No.
Because of that?
No, not at all. So bait sizes are not that big of a deal for me.
Okay.
Once post spawn comes around, bait size gets bigger because those fish want a big meal. Once before spawn, just a normal size bait.
All right, so that takes us to Tackle Time. Tackle Time is sponsored by PICO Lures. They have a whole line of hard baits and soft baits. You can check them out at picolures.com. If they want to find out more about you, Jeff, what social media can they go to, and do you have a website they can check out?
Absolutely. Just Jeff Sprague Fishing, and that's Instagram, Facebook, all of it. Even my website is Jeff Sprague Fishing. You guys, listen, feel free to reach out, send messages, tag us in posts. We have a new rod coming. It's out in Walmart. It's Pro Xfinity Pro, excuse me.
Okay.
It's an orange rod. It's an awesome rod line. You can buy it on Walmart.com. We've got combos out in Walmart. Tackleback's coming. Just a really cool place. That's where we bought our tackle when we were kids.
Right.
We didn't have big box stores. We didn't have academies and Bass Pros. And so I wanted to get something back into those stores that just the everyday,
Angler,
aunt, uncle, grandmother, grandfather, dad, mom, when they're, they need to buy something for their kid that's quality. That's what I wanted to get back in those stores. So take a look at that stuff in Walmart as well. I'm super excited to have it out there.
There you go. There you have it. Like I always like to end the show, make sure you keep your hooks sharp.
Yes, sir.
And your lures in the water.